How's it going, everyone? I got a very special guest, Ed Kracz, reporter for Eagles Today, which is part of the Fan Nation Network. It's on SI.com, which is where I write as well. Ed, thank you so much for coming on today. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, Grant. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It feels like a playoff game in late November. It'll be early December when this game happens. And people out here in the West Coast are excited for the game, but they really don't know that much about the Eagles. So I brought you on to ask you the 5 most important questions.
Yeah.
For the edification of the people out here. All right. Tell us the biggest strengths of the Eagles.
It has to be, the trenches, both sides of the line of scrimmage, the offensive line, the defensive line. That's where the Eagles invest a lot of resources. You know, that offensive line's got probably 2 Hall of Famers on it. Jason Kelsey at center. He's 36 years old, been doing this a long time. This will be his 151st straight start. I mean, he hasn't missed a start since 2014. And then Lane Johnson, the right tackle, who kind of came up with some groin soreness on Sunday morning when the Eagles played the Buffalo Bills this past week. Eagles held him out as a precaution. It was raining like crazy. They didn't want to have him put any undue stress on that to kind of keep that groin intact. So those are 2 Hall of Fame guys. And then you have on the defensive side, you have 2 very good pass rushers in Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat. Hassan Reddick has 8.5 sacks this year. He had 16.5 last year, 3 more in the postseason, 19.5 sacks. Josh Sweat had 11 sacks last year. He's got 6.5, but it's not even so much about the sacks as these guys really generate pressure, and it's not just on the edges. They've got this rookie, Jalen Carter, their 9th overall pick from the University of Georgia. To me, he's having a defensive rookie of the year type season. The Eagles have never had one of those types of players, and he's doing a great job up front, pushing the pocket. And then Jordan Davis, his old running mate at Georgia, is a huge mammoth, 6'6", 345-pound-ish mountain of a man, very good at stopping the run. So that defensive front for the Eagles and the offensive line, to me, Grant, are the strengths.
I want to ask you real quick, Jalen Carter, has he been an upgrade over Javon Hargrave, who's with the Niners now?
Listen, Hargrave was very experienced, and at Hargrave, and they love Hargrave, by the way. Every player in that locker room, especially the defensive guys, just speak volumes of Hargrave, and I really like them too. You've probably talked to him. He's a quiet guy, pretty unassuming, but terrific person. And I don't know. That's a good question. I would probably say Hargrave's better just because he's been doing it longer. Carter still has to prove himself over time here. He's got 4 sacks. I think Graves has 6. So that's kind of comparable. But I think Carter will eventually be better than Hargrave's career will turn out to be. But that remains to be seen. Just based on what I'm seeing as a rookie, he's just been really terrific as a player. Staying out of trouble. That was kind of the big knock on Carter coming out of Georgia. Some red flags there. Some teams passed on him. That allowed the Eagles to swoop in and take him 9th overall. But listen, again, Hargrave with that experience to me is better at this stage of his career than Jalen Carter is.
What are the Eagles' biggest weaknesses?
Linebacker. They're just beat up as can be, and they don't put a lot of resources in linebacker, and maybe this will teach them a lesson, because right now they are so thin. They're trying to sign Shaquille Leonard after the Colts cut him. The Cowboys and the Eagles are in play. They both entertained him this week. The guy has 2 back surgeries last year. How much he can help, but this is how desperate the Eagles are. Zach Cunningham, who's been really good, they signed him during training camp as a free agent, been their best linebacker, and it's not saying much. It's a low bar, but he leads the team in tackles. He probably won't play. He had a hamstring injury against the Bills. That leaves him with Nick Morrow and somebody named Christian Ellis, who is an undrafted free agent, a really good special teams player, but he's just not going to hold up. And not having good linebackers against a team like the 49ers, this is a huge liability for Philadelphia, this linebacker core. And even Zach Cunningham, as good as he is, he's not like that first round type talent that the Eagles just don't seem to ever want to put the resources into getting.
Got it. Interesting.
And then one more thing, Grant, their pass defense stinks. They're ranked 29th in the league. Last year, they were ranked 1st in the league. They only gave up 172 yards a game. passing. This year they're giving up, I think it's 255 a game, almost next to last in the NFL. So that's been a real issue too.
Why? What's going? Is it just the defensive coordinator changing? Are they getting old?
Well, listen, they had injuries. Avonte Maddox, their slot corner, tore his pec in the second game. They lost their backup to a torn Achilles in the summer. So it's been a revolving door. They've used, I think, 7 or 8 different slot corners. Now they've settled on Bradley Roby, who they signed off the couch and brought him in. And he got hurt with a shoulder, missed 3 games after playing limited snaps in the first 2 games since he got here. They're hoping he brings some stability. But right now it's just been kind of, they're just not getting the job done. And you would think they would, because James Bradbury, Darius Slay, 2 very good veteran players. But for some reason, they're not getting it done.
What does Nick Sirianni bring to the Eagles? Does he call plays? And if not, what does he bring to this team?
He's a CEO coach. He doesn't call plays. The plays are called by his offensive coordinator, which last year was Shane Steichen. Now the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts has the Colts in, playoff contention. Might even be in the conversation for coach of the year. But now Brian Johnson has inherited that role. He was the quarterback's coach for the last 2 years. Good friends with Hurts's family. He used to be the OC at the University of Florida, very young guy. He's being mentioned as a possible head coaching candidate. But yeah, I think that Sirianni brought culture to this team, really has these players playing for each other. General manager Howie Roseman gave him a fantastic roster. But as a head coach, that doesn't always guarantee victory. But Sirianni has these guys playing for each other, not for themselves or for their stats. I think that's been a really big reason why he's been, 33-12 since he took the head coaching job. Last year they started out 10-1. This year they're 10-1. But I think a lot of it has to do with the culture that Sirianni has established in that locker room.
Okay. How good of a quarterback is Jalen Hurts?
His stats might not show it, but this guy, all he does is win. I mean, he's 27-2 in his last 29 regular season games. He's 14-0 in the last 14 games against teams with winning records. He's doing things that we haven't seen done in this league in a very long time, and you don't know how, because his numbers, they're okay. His completion percentage is around 70%, which is very good. He's accounted for 30 touchdowns, 10 on the ground, 28 on total touchdowns, 18 passing, 10 rushing. All he does is win. I mean, if you look at these last 2 games the Eagles played in the first half, he really struggled, but he doesn't get down on himself. He keeps after it. He never looks happy. He almost looks like he's a robot out there playing, and winning means so much to him. And he's been through so much, all that, national recognition he got with Alabama when he got benched in favor of Tua Tagovailoa in the national championship game. Stuck with the program, came back after Tagovailoa got hurt the following year in the SEC championship game. So he's really had a really roller coaster career. So he has learned literally not to get too high, not to get too low, the old cliche. But I think he's a fantastic quarterback, probably even a better leader. I mean, he's getting guys in their 30s like Cox and Graham and, Lane Johnson and Jason Kelsey to follow him, to buy into what kind of a person and player he is. And that's not easy. So I think his leadership qualities are second to none. And that's probably even more the reason for his success than, as talented as he is as a quarterback.
Tell me who's going to win this game.
Well, listen, that's a tough call. I mean, I think the Eagles being at home, the 49ers coming across country, that never helps. I think some of the stuff that the 49ers put out there in the offseason after losing that championship game last year has resonated inside the locker room, even though the players aren't coming out. Some of them are, actually. They're coming out and saying that, that irks them. Yeah, Reddick, Jordan Mailata, the left tackle. James Bradbury was asked about being called trash by Deebo Samuel, and he took the high road on that, didn't really stoop down to that level. But that bothers those guys inside the locker room. And listen, you got to stay focused, though. You can't get caught up in any kind of revenge or anything like that. You have to focus. And I think the Eagles, this means a lot to them to come in and let the 49ers know, hey, we beat you whether you had your quarterback or not last year. You lost both your quarterbacks because, like who was it? Bradbury said you couldn't protect them. I mean, that's the bottom line. You know, they gave up 2 sacks to Reddick, who wrecked the game and knocked the 2 quarterbacks out. Now, you know, that's the 49ers' fault. And that's what James Bradbury kind of said. And Reddick said it too. So I think this game means a lot to them. I'm going to pick the Eagles probably to win something like 28-24.
28-24. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure.